Christi is a product executive with over a decade of experience leading product from startups to global corporations. She has a lot of experience in ed tech and sales sectors. She used to be in Salt Lake City, being in product leadership before moving out to the East Coast, but she was in product leadership at Instructure and WGU, and she is now the SVP of product at Jor. So let's give her a big warm welcome.
Hey guys,
On mute.
nice to see everybody. Um, I want to thank Nick in advance. I know this is recording, but he's agreed to postpone posting the recording for a little while because I'm using some current examples of a go-to-market that we're working on right now. So you guys are gonna see real stuff in this presentation, and just hoping nobody will take it and tell everyone because this is a new launch that's coming soon. So, but I thought it would be helpful to have real examples. It's so often that when you're talking about something you're trying to get better at a skill, it's always so theoretical, and I just thought it'd be more helpful to have real stuff. And so over the last couple months, as I've been thinking about this presentation, I've just been taking examples where I saw opportunities to kind of to share. So let's get started, and forgive me and my lack of Zoom knowledge. This is me on LinkedIn, uh, kind of boring, but figured if anybody wants to connect, let's do it. So I've been in product for a while, worked at a lot of these places. I'm sure some of you recognize them and still work there, some of you. Uh, but before I was in product, I had a couple of different careers. I like to talk about it because I think it's important that, and I actually used to have a podcast about how to get into product management because very few people take a straight line. I think there's a lot more opportunity now. There's degrees and things that are related. But you know, I'm old. When I was in college, there was no such thing. So I started out as a wilderness ranger and a wildland firefighter. I then helped start a film festival in Oregon and worked for a couple more festivals. That's what brought me to Utah originally, working for the Sundance Film Festival, and then went back and got a master's and moved on from there. I see there's a chat, but I don't know what the chat is. If there's a question, will you let me know? Just holler. So that's not what we're here to talk about. Me is not important, but I just wanted you guys to kind of know where I come from, and I haven't done product my whole life, just half of my adult life. So storytelling, it's a super powerful tool, and it is something that I would call probably the superpower of my career. Of all the things I can do in product, storytelling is probably the best. We actually did an exercise with my team recently where I asked everybody to talk about what they think their superpowers were, and then we all went around the room and said, you know, like, Lisa, I think your superpower is this. And it was really fun and actually a great exercise. If you have a team, it's really great to do that with each other. And my superpower from everyone's point of view was storytelling. So I figured this would be a good topic for me to talk about with you guys. So just starting out with, you know, the guy, the big guy, total jerk, but very good product person, right? Um, Definitely a great storyteller. So just lending a little credibility to the fact that storytelling is important. So I just want to start out with this slide. I've got a few points to make here. And honestly, if you walk away with nothing else, this is probably the most important thing to remember. Um, you should have a point when you're telling a story, whether that's through a presentation or if you're thinking about like, you often hear people do like little pitches. If you're trying to get somebody interested in something, have a point. Don't have 10. It's often a problem with most stories, trying to say too much, trying to do too much. Know what you want people to walk away with If you don't know that, your story's gonna make no sense. So you also don't want to say so much. Um, this is one of my favorite stories from my film days. So 8 years in the film world, I ran a film festival, worked at many. I had a lot of people in the film industry who would ask me, how do I get my film into a film festival? And I had a little blurb that I got that question so often. I just like had a draft saved in my emails that I'd send to people. And number one was hire an editor because so many people were their own editor and they were the director and they were the writer. And the problem is you know too many details. You know too much about what it took to get that shot. And this is the same case anytime you're trying to persuade people to do something, anytime you're trying to convey how awesome your launch of your product is. You know too many details. You need help culling those details because nobody cares about all those details. Even though you know how hard it was to achieve this tiny little piece of that project, if it doesn't help tell your story, it's not worth keeping in. You got to cut, got to be succinct. Um, and this, I think, is the most important skill for a product person to have, period. If you must be able to reduce complexity. If your story is too complicated, no one can follow it. And we really need to be able to tell a good story to bring engineers along on the journey of whatever we're building, to convince executives to buy into the feature you want to build. You need to reduce complexity anytime you're talking about something. If your story makes things more complex or difficult to understand, start over. It's got to keep it simple. I mean, we all know that phrase, right? It's got to make things simple and easy to understand. So I'm going to give you an example from my real job. This is a slide that product marketing had put together for part of our launch. This was how they were capturing the problems that we're going to solve with this brand new product that we're launching. I am so uncompelled. When when they bring me things like this, I will often say to them, these things are all true, but why does any of this matter to me? There is no emotional resonance here whatsoever. This is what I made and sent back to them. There are three big problems. And even though these pictures are not like the most sophisticated pictures in the world, this is for an internal meeting where we're trying to help people understand what we're trying to do. And you very quickly understand, you don't even have to read the words, right? There are images that convey feelings. And when I go through this deck with internal people, which I have, I did 3 times today, people get it very quickly. It's not hard to understand. This is like, hold on, give me 5 minutes. I'm going to read. This isn't even the wordiest one. So, that hits all of those buttons of being succinct, and, excuse me, um, also using emotion and empathy. This is also a really critical part of storytelling. And like anytime you look up anything about storytelling, this is going to be the number one thing that you're going to hear over and over again. Emotion and empathy is the way to persuade. You're probably not going to do it with intellect. And you can still do it with data and facts. So just because you're telling a story doesn't mean you can't include facts. I love this example. This is a bunch of facts. It's not super compelling. This is also a bunch of facts, and it is super compelling. If you haven't seen this movie, Who Are You and Where Have You Been Living? It came out a long time ago. It is a documentary that is very emotional. I don't think there are any words in the whole, oh, I guess there's Morgan Freeman talking, right? So yeah, but it's not like a bunch of facts being listed out, but you are learning so much about penguins. And that's because of the story that they tell, not because they hit you with a bunch of penguin facts. So just remember that facts can still tell a story. And now we're going to do some quizzes. I am going to give you little facts, and I'm wondering if you guys can tell me the name of the movie that told the story. You can put it in the chat, but I won't be able to see it.
Hidden Figures.
Yes! First one. Yes. Next one. No. This is a good
Oh, is
movie.
it Imitation Game?
Yes. Yes. Benedict Cumberbatch, one of the greatest names of all time. Uh, this one's pretty easy, guys.
Is it Aaron Brockovich?
It is nice. Last one's a little harder, but I think is one of the most incredible uses of storytelling to convey a very complex
Is it The
story.
Big Short?
Out in the
Yes.
Short. Oh, The Big Short. That's it.
The Big Short, yes. This impresses me more than any because I think I don't know how many articles you could read. It's just so boring, this topic. I mean, it's important, but like I didn't really get it until I saw this movie. So just some examples of how telling a good story can really, I mean, it can also change minds, right? Can move nations. So another example from my job. These are facts, and they are all true. But this is actually more data, and it's easier to understand. Essentially, what we're doing is going to allow people to have more effective outreach. And this makes that a lot more clear than just a bunch of bulleted list. So just a little bit of visual storytelling starts to show this is what you get without us, this is what you get with us. It's so much easier to tell this story with just a little bit of imagery. Again, there's more data on this slide than there was on this slide. But this is easier to understand. So it's really like, and this actually probably the most popular slide of all of the slides in my little deck for our internal folks to get people excited about what we're doing. And if you're in B2B fashion, luxury fashion, give me a call. We're doing cool things. I doubt anybody is. So yeah, Andrew Stanton, Pixar, I mean, one of the greatest storytellers there are, said it perfectly, make me care. I mean, that is ultimately what you got to do with your storytelling is make people care. And aesthetically, I think is important too. I mean, if you think back just to that slide showing that funnel, it's a lot more interesting to look at a slide that has something on it other than just bullet points. Helps a lot with storytelling. Get yourself good at Google Slides or whatever tool you guys use at your company. It can help just enormously. Analogies are not just your friend, they're my favorite. I think analogies help so much. One of the analogies I've been using lately is my company does B2B wholesale luxury brand and retail relationships. One of the things that we're sort of creating a new tool that will force us to reposition ourselves a little bit in our market to help people understand what they can use us for. So the story I've been telling is that people have always known that we are a tool they can use, like a hammer that they can use to hang up a picture on their wall. What they don't know is that you can still use that hammer to build the wall that you hang the picture on. We just have to help our clients understand that they can use the hammer for more than just hanging pictures on the wall. And that analogy has helped a lot of, especially marketing, understand we have to reposition ourselves a little bit. So analogies are very helpful because they help you make the unfamiliar familiar. And this is something we use in product all the time. Especially when we're trying to help non-technical people understand what we're doing. Using analogies can help your audience, no matter who they are. It really helps them understand what you're trying to get across. Uh-oh. Oh, this is because I imported this from it had some tags on it that's no longer there. Another example from my job. This is my little analogy that I've been using. The difference between using our product and not using our product is the difference between fishing in the ocean and fishing in a stocked pond. My CEO uses this analogy all the time when she's selling our product. I don't know, don't ask me how to come up with analogies. You probably just have to work on that. But this is probably my go-to thing that I do the most is, oh, come on, analogies. This is another one of my favorite analogies. What we're doing right now is we want to be the Match.com of our industry. Their Tinder already exists. We're not interested in the one and done purchases. We're interested in helping our brands build real relationships. So that's why we say that we are the Match.com. This is actually how I sold the executive team and the board on working on this project. That analogy alone. They help. Use what you have. So I think there are a lot of tools out there for storytelling. And there was a time when I was like, I have to go learn how to do animation because I'm not going to be able to tell the stories I want to tell if I don't go get a degree in animation or learn how to use animation tools. I don't think that you need to do that. So I'm going to show you really quickly. This is another thing that product marketing came up with for how we could explain to people the features that we have. And I took iMovie, Google Slides, QuickTime, and free music downloads and made this video. Can you see it?
Welcome. I'm excited to introduce.
Yeah, you guys can see it. I won't go through the whole video because it's a couple minutes long, but I mean, I created this video using tools that come natively on my device. I didn't get a bunch of, I didn't do a bunch of training. This is all done with Google Slides and QuickTime. And it looks and sounds fantastic. And it tells people exactly what we have, how they can use it, how it benefits them. And yeah, which would you prefer? It's like, it's just so much easier. And just like I said, use what you have at your fingertips. There we go. Okay, one more example. This is from an old job. The engineering team was trying to get a project prioritized. And they kept saying, it's so important, we have to do this. And nobody understood, including me, like, why is this project so important? So once I sat down and really spent some time with the engineering team, see if I can get up there. Okay, sweet. Are you guys seeing a different view now? Yes? Can you see production, staging, dev? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So the problem that climate change, the project they were trying to get prioritized, was trying to accomplish was an environment problem. So we have a production environment, a staging environment, and a dev environment. And whenever we would add new code to the dev environment, we would often introduce bugs, but we couldn't see them until they got to staging. So then we'd have to go in and fix that bug and potentially introduce a new bug. And then we would fix that bug, introduce a new bug, but that one we couldn't see till it got to production. So we were having a rampant problem when it came to bugs making their way to production. And really it was because we didn't have similar environments set up for the engineers to even see those bugs until they got to production. That was what the whole project was. It was 9 months of them banging a drum saying we had to do this project, and no one understood why. I built this, project was greenlit immediately. This is Google Slides. Again, all I did was make pictures. These are just like, there is nothing complicated here about, I just used what I had to tell a story, and telling that story got me what I needed. Well, I didn't know I wanted it until I understood it. Once I understood it and I put a story to it, it got greenlit immediately. It just goes back to use the things that you have. And this actually, what this, the emotion this elicited was fear. But it was motivating, and it's what I wanted. So use it, use fear. It can work for you. Oh, this is a big one that I think is really important, especially for new product people to understand. When you are presenting to your peers or to engineers, or to even to a specific audience within your company that might care a lot about some set of details, you need to make sure it makes sense to that audience. Sometimes you know your audience well enough that you can call on them to tell their stories and say more about problems that they've experienced to help support what you're trying to get across. But when you are, especially when you're presenting up, my recommendation is to find someone who is, if you're presenting to an executive team, make friends with an executive or someone close to the executives and get their feedback and input on what is going to make sense and what's not. I have created those opportunities for people in the past where I've said, hey, if you're going to go present to the CEO, I know her really well. I know how she reacts to things. Let me know if you would like some feedback before you go present to her. And the people who take me up on it, usually it goes quite well. And the people who don't, it usually goes pretty poorly. So take advantage of people, find people who will help you when you're presenting up, because you should be presenting to an executive or an executive team very differently than you are presenting to engineers or peers. Executives don't have the detail and they don't want it. They don't have time. There's no way an executive has time to know every detail about everything. You have to give them, again, go back to the beginning, pick your point and make it well. Actually, I'm just remembering now, I don't know if I remembered to include this, but if you guys have not seen the clip, there's a clip of the South Park guys that's going around a lot right now talking about storytelling. When you are telling a story, you should never have, the story should never say this point and then this point and then this point. Your story should always start with this point, therefore this point, but this point, therefore this point. It has to move along. If you're just going through and knocking out a bunch of crap that doesn't build to something and make a holistic point, it's kind of pointless. Oh God, that was so good. Not planned. This is another big win. I always advise people to get the critical people in the meeting bought in before you're going to tell your story or present your presentation. If you are presenting to people who are you're going to need their support in order to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. If they're not bought in before you get in that room, you're probably not going to sell them in that room. You got to sell them before you get to that room. And then when you are presenting it to a wider audience, having that support will go miles to getting you whatever you're trying to achieve. Another example. This I used this to sell the plan to the board, the executive, the company. Everybody's like, this is awesome. One group I knew was going to say, where'd you get that data? I want to know where that data came from, and that is our client support team. So when I presented to them, I had this slide ready to go. And I did that actually the entire presentation that I did with them. I did a separate presentation with them ahead of our go-to-market meeting. And I had supporting slides for every point that I knew, because I knew them, where they would want to push back. I got them bought in before we did the go-to-market presentation. And it made the go-to-market presentation a celebration of what we were doing, and not like, but what about this? But what about this? But what about this? So it's not just about storytelling in the moment. You have to always be telling the story, especially ahead of time, to get people bought in along the way. Something my CEO says all the time, you have to say something 7 times to people for them to remember it, which I don't know if that's true, but it's how we operate to make sure everyone understands what we're doing. We're always repeating ourselves. It seems like you're repeating yourself 50 freaking times, and it's so annoying, but it is effective. So if you can pick your point, find your story, stick with it, and repeat it a lot, it will be very effective. You'll start hearing people tell your story back to you. That's my favorite. Okay, just a couple more. Are we doing okay on time, Nick? Yeah?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite things when I'm looking at hiring, especially. I'm looking for people who can be vulnerable and authentic. Vulnerable doesn't mean that you aren't intelligent or confident. If people feel authenticity and vulnerability from you, they're more likely to be open to collaboration with you. They're more likely to emotionally connect with what you're saying. Ego creates separation and removes the focus from the story and the goal of the story, and focuses it more on you and your success. And I've seen people start out going sort of with this vulnerable, authentic vibe, and it shifts into ego, and I've seen them lose the room. As soon as it becomes about you and not about the story, nobody's buying what you're selling. And this is one of my favorite slides, just in general. If you haven't seen The Princess Bride, I highly recommend it. This is this is also the advice I give when people are doing user interviews. It's not an opportunity to tell people or show people how smart you are. It's an opportunity to shut up a little bit and listen. Okay, last thing, personas. I hate them. I hate them because personas are supposed to be archetypal users whose goals and characteristics represent the needs of a larger group of users. The reason I hate them is because they are, I'm going to say almost always, because I want to believe that at some point, somewhere, they've been good.
Grill him?
Is it possible to mute JJ? Or maybe he'll mute himself. Okay. So the reason I don't like them is because they're usually very bad storytelling and they're forgettable. So I like to, I was in education technology for a long time. And I worked at places that had 14 personas. I worked at places that only had a few personas. But the bottom line is every persona I saw was a whole bunch of information that I immediately forgot. And I was bought in and interviewed the users all the time. The thing that, like, in 6 months, if you were to go back and ask somebody who you had presented your personas to anything about any of the personas, Does anyone ever remember anything? I'm not saying that there isn't really amazing work that goes into personas. I just think that they're rarely using storytelling to buy people in to help you. The whole point is to be able to say, when so and so, when Jackie's using this, she's going to feel like this. Or what about when Daryl's using this, right? Like that's supposed to be how you're using those personas. But 5 months later, 6 months later, after you've seen these, 2 weeks later, 5 minutes after I've seen these personas, most of the time I'm like, no idea, no memory. What if I showed you this? What if I asked you, like, how would Lisa feel about this? When we're thinking about education, you know what kind of a learner she is. You know what kind of a learner Bart Simpson is. You know what kind of a learner Hermione is. There is a lot of story. There's years of story packed into a lot of actually archetypal characters out there, and you have lots to choose from. There's literature, film, I don't know, songs, myths. Like there are so many archetypal characters out there. I really encourage you to think about finding a way to use those types of people as potential users when you're trying to get people to understand who you're building for. I think it can be a lot more effective because the whole point of the persona is to have sort of like a shorthand to be like, how would this person use it? How would this makes things a lot easier. Okay, so I'm ending on a very controversial note, but if you've worked for me or with me, you already know how much I hate personas. I talk about it a lot. I just would like to see a great one. So maybe this is me challenging the world to show me some good storytelling via personas.